So today we're going to be finding the circumference of our circles. But what is the circumference? What does that mean? Well, it's simply the distance around your entire circle. So what's the total distance around your circle? That's the circumference. However, this sounds like something we've done before. Instead, we didn't call it circumference. We called it something else. Well, when we're talking about your straight edge shapes, like your squares, your triangles, and your rectangles, we called that the perimeter when we tried to find the distance around that shape. However, your circle doesn't have sides like those shapes do, and we have another name for finding its distance, which we call the circumference. But they pretty much mean the same thing. It just depends on what type of shape you're talking about. If you're talking about those straight edge shapes, like squares and triangles and rectangles, you're going to be using perimeter. If you're talking about your circle, you're going to be using circumference. But they're all just saying, find the total distance around your shape. So now that we know what the circumference is, how do we find it? Well, the formula for finding the circumference is going to be as follows. C for circumference equals pi times d. Now, what is d? D is going to be your circle's diameter. So d is diameter. And your diameter is going to be the distance, the straight line going through the center of your circle, connecting 2 points on the edge of your circle. So connecting these 2 points here, this is going to be your diameter. Now, what is pi? Well, pi is a special number. It's a constant number, but it's a very special number. And we're not going to get into everything you need to know about pi today, but at a high level, pi is going to be the ratio between a circle's circumference and its diameter. And one thing that's cool about it is it's a constant number. It doesn't change. So if it's the ratio between a circle's circumference and its diameter and it doesn't change, that means no matter how big or small your circle is, the pi constant is constant. This has the same value. And this value is a rather large decimal. So for our video, we're going to cut it off. We're going to round it to 2 decimal places. So we're going to say that pi is going to be roughly 3.14. Now this is not all of pi. Pi doesn't end. It has a lot of decimal places. But for this video, this should be enough. So as long as we have our diameter and we know what pi is, we should be able to find the circumference of our circle. But what if we're not given the diameter? What if instead we're given something like this? So instead of the full diameter, we're given this. What is this called? Well, this is the radius. The radius. And your radius is going to be the distance from the center of your circle to any point on your circle. And this is always going to be half of your diameter. So if we were given the radius, how do we use the radius to find the circumference? Well, we said that your radius is going to be half of the diameter, so you can rewrite this formula to be pi times 2 times r. 2 times r should equal d because your radius is half of your diameter. Or technically, your diameter is 2 times the radius. So it doesn't matter if you're given a circle's diameter or its radius, you still should be able to find its circumference. If you're given diameter, use that one. If you're given radius, use that one. So now that we know our 2 formulas that we can use when trying to find the circumference, let's jump into a couple of examples. So let's say we have these 2 examples. One, we're given the diameter, and the other, we're given a radius. Let's try to find the circumference of these 2 circles. So let's start with the first one. Using our pi times d formula, let's find the circumference of this circle. So what is pi? Remember, we said pi is going to be roughly 3.14 for this video. There's a lot more decimals, but we're going to cut it off at 3.14. So that's going to be 3.14 times, and it's not technically directly equal, approximately 3.14 times, what's your d? What's your diameter? 36 yards. 36 yards. Now don't forget your units. When you're trying to find your perimeter or your circumference, you have to have your units there. Pi doesn't have units, so you don't worry about that. But your distance, it does have units, so don't forget your units. Whatever units you start with, you should be ending with that. So you can do 3.14 times 36 yards, and if you were to do that, you would get what? 113.04, and remember, the units you start with are the units you end with. So 113.04 yards is going to be the approximate value for our circumference. If you're given your d, your diameter, you can plug it into your formula and find the circumference. Now let's move on to our second one. What happens if we're given the radius? Well, we have a different formula we're going to be using. Slightly different. It's the same formula, but it looks a little different. Pi times 2 times r. So what's your r, your radius in this case? Your radius is going to be 12 feet. So let's rewrite this. This is going to be, once again, approximately, because we're rounding our pi, 3.14 times 2 times 12 feet. Don't forget your units. Now, what's 2 times 12 feet? Well, this is going to be approximately 3.14 times 24 feet. And if you were to put that into your calculator or just do the math, you would get 75.36 feet. So for our number one, our circumference was 113.04 yards. And for our number two, our circumference is 75.36 feet. So it doesn't matter if you are given the diameter or your radius, you can use either one of them to find your circumference. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you learned something today. And if you did, be sure to leave a like and hit the subscribe button. See you again next week.